Hey, Blenders, on this week's show, it's Black Panther week. We are going to be talking about Black Panther Wakanda Forever with both a spoiler-free and a spoiler-filled segment, so enjoy the show. This episode of Real Blend is brought to you by AMC Theaters On Demand. Whether you're on the couch or on the go, AMC Theaters On Demand brings the movies to you. From crowd pleasers to cult classics, there are thousands of movies to watch and save in your library. Be sure to check out AMC Theaters On Demand each week for limited offers and daily deals that will help save you money as you build out your very own movie library. And if you're an AMC Stubs member, you will earn rewards with AMC Theaters On Demand rentals and purchases. Later in today's show, we will be discussing some of our favorite hero team-ups in the MCU, all of which are available with this awesome service. Thank you to AMC Theaters for supporting the show, and be sure to check the description for links and more information on AMC Theaters On Demand. Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 236 of Real Blend, a podcast that is powered by raw, unfiltered vibranium, baby. My name is Sean O'Connell. I'm the managing editor here at Cinema Blend and also the co-host of the Real Blend podcast. And on this week's show, it is Black Panther week. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is hitting theaters, or actually, by the time you're listening to this, it hit theaters last night. So stick around. We're going to have a spoiler-free review and a spoiler-filled segment where we're going to go in depth about it. Gabe, does that mean we're doing the tier list today?
We're going to do the tier list today. Yeah.
Ooh, that's hot. That's a good tease.
Fun stuff,
folks. Yeah. And by we, I mean Jake Hamilton, Fox 32 in Chicago. Hey, Jakey, how are you?
I'm not doing well, if I'm being honest with you.
What's the matter, Jakey?
I just had to carry up 13 flights, like 100 pounds of genius in my arms.
Oh, what? I'm sorry. What's...
Oh, nice.
Look at that.
For those of us who are not on YouTube, I'm holding the next great American novel, as it were. You know, there's Catcher in the Rye, there's The Great Gatsby, and then there's With Great Power.
American Prometheus.
My copy finally arrived, and it sounds like this is such a ridiculous description, but I get why you're asking the question. It feels like a real book, like the hard. It's a nice hard cover. You got the beautiful spine. You got the font. Like it looks beautiful, and is my favorite part the shout out with my name in it. Yeah,
you're gonna read.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh yeah.
I also love that. So on my book, it doesn't say it's by Sean O'Connell. It says by the Kid. And it, I was just wondering, was that a limited edition printing that I got?
One. I printed one.
Oh, okay, thank you.
For Kevin McCarthy at Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Yes.
Did you?
If you get a book with his autograph, he actually just signs the key.
The key.
Oh,
he doesn't put Sean O'Connell.
All right, I'm gonna have to start doing
as you can
that
clearly
now,
see,
actually.
mine, it's not autographed. So
No, it's not. That came from Jeff Bezos.
True.
Did you order through Amazon? Actually, did you?
I did. Yeah, actually, I will say I was at the airport. Kevin and I just got back from LA. I was at the airport and did just pop into the bookstore in the off chance, because I thought, how great would it be if I could find it at the airport bookstore? They must have sold out.
Would they tell you? They would tell you, right, Sean? They'd be like,
tell me what.
If your book was going to be in like airports, like I assume that's going to be like.
They tell me nothing.
They tell you
honestly.
It's in Barnes and Noble, right?
Yeah, it is in Barnes and Noble.
Because Sean came here to see Black Panther with me, which we're going to review later on the show today. And I remember walking into a Barnes and Noble. We were walking into the mall, and I'm like, "Can I go buy your book now?" And he's like, "It'll be there on the 1st or whatever with the date of the release." And by the way, Sean's book came out the same day as Quentin Tarantino's Cinema Speculation, which is, I think, really just a cool little coincidence. And both of them arrived in my mailbox in the same day. So
if
they're
my book
both racing
sells,
for the #1 spot.
if my book sells a sliver of what that book sells, because it is dominating the Amazon charts. All right, here's first world problems. I'll tell you guys this as well too. Today, if you go to the page for on Amazon, it says that my book is #1 on the bestsellers list in its category, right? But I'm supposed to get a little tiny label at the top that says #1 bestseller, and it's not showing up, and I'm annoyed because it's there, it's on the chart, and I'm saying like, exactly. No, I know. Like it's not real until I get it. The
person
label.
actually, Sean, the person that like goes through and adds those to the listing, they actually just got fired from Twitter, and they were the person that handled verification at Twitter.
But congratulations, you got verified for $8 a month.
Yeah, wonderful.
Well,
all right.
by the way, on the day we're recording this, and this is just minutia, but all day long they were adding this official thing to Twitter, and then Elon Musk took it away, and then now it's back. I don't know. It's so weird.
The irony that Sean can finally get it, but it's at a point where it means nothing.
Oh, it means nothing.
It's the perfect end to the story. It is the absolute perfect end to the Sean O'Connell verification saga.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna fast forward 2 months, and somehow Sean's gonna shift the narrative. He's like, I'm so cool. I never even
verified.
Nope. Never even needed it. If you're watching us on YouTube, hello. Thank you for joining us. Hit subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Oh, how close are we to 10,000 subscribers?
Close.
We're at like 9.9 something. So
Mom, if you're listening, get on
please, come on. Fake accounts. Let's go. Get the bots moving.
We're at 9,932.
My mom, all you have to do is create 78 account or 68 accounts or whatever it would be.
And just you can do it.
Subscribe, please.
Of course,
hopefully this review episode will push us over the edge.
Oh, true. This is a big one. Something like that. Have you signed up for ReelBlend Premium? Oh, Donovan killed with the Weekend at Bernie's poster.
Oh my God. Wait, that was fantastic, Donovan.
I gotta retweet that real quick.
That was terrific.
Mid-show.
Kind of the fun stuff that we do on the premium. Get your ad-free versions of the podcast every Monday, an extra segment each week, and a newsletter that comes from me. Not this week, but next week there'll be a newsletter. Check the description for information on where to sign up. All right, let's start the show. Black Panther box office predictions. We were having this talk about the people who haven't been back to the theaters yet and how movies like Doctor Strange, when it came around in the summertime, and then of course Top Gun Maverick, which has just been dominating. But I still feel, I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, I still talk to plenty of people who say that they haven't gone back to theaters yet. Like Top Gun didn't lure them back. There's been nothing sort of in the lull that's prepping them for it, but that they're coming for Black Panther. And I want to go to what the previous film, the first Black Panther movie did, but going back, this is 2018. It ended up doing 700 million domestic and 647 million international for $1.3 billion.
Right, and that was also really in the heart of that phase of the MCU. Like we were like that Black Panther hit, and then Infinity War hit, and then it was just like. And remember, do you guys remember how insane it was that Black Panther came out, did what it did, and then all of a sudden Black Panther gets dusted in Infinity War? It was like one of the most insane arcs. It was.
If there was anyone that was going to be safe during that, because we all kind of went into, I don't know about you guys, I sort of went into Infinity War thinking like he's probably going to snap. Like that was sort of the. He was never one of the people that we really thought would be snapped away because they just introduced him. It was incredibly ballsy.
And Black Panther was obviously the release of that first film it transcended film. It was people were going in groups because it was such a huge deal culturally and kind of what it meant. And I think that's going to be an interesting question here without Chadwick Boseman and obviously his legacy and him. I always say that, when you're an artist like that, you truly never die because your work lives on forever. You can always go back and revisit it. But especially with Chadwick, because we know that he was sick in the process of making specifically the first Black Panther film. And then you look at the movies he made while he was sick, which Da 5 Bloods and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, projects that were obviously very important and impactful, specifically Black Panther. And then you go back and look at those videos of Chadwick surprising those fans on Fallon when they would turn around. And,
God, that's such an emotional segment.
Yeah. And you just think about then again, in that moment, he's also still sick. And the selfless nature of what he knew he was to people. So it is an interesting question as you're factoring in, it sounds weird to belittle it down to a box office discussion, but it is a question of whether or not, with the impact of that first film, where we were in the phase of the MCU and where we are now. And which is, I would argue that there's a bit of fatigue in the MCU, but this film has that it factor. It's like, who is the next Black Panther? How are they going to pull this off? Sure. How are they doing? I mean, and it also had one of the greatest teaser trailers of all time when they went from that great Bob Marley track to into I don't think Bob Marley's singing it, but into Kendrick. But the beginning of it is a Bob Marley song, I think covered by somebody, and then it goes into Kendrick.
But see, like, I don't want to make this connection to box office in this instance, but this is a reality. There's a lot of people who are curious about how they're going to handle the loss of
It's one of the questions I've been asked the most about the film.
Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, you can't deny that. That is when you were going into that movie, and you and I sat next to each other. We were on the ride. We were driving there together. We were like,
we're about to see a wonderful time.
We're about to see the next Black Panther. No, I guess we're about to see the next Black Panther film, and we're about to find out who that next Black Panther is.
And Kevin brought up a bunch of things that I thought we were going to see. Like when he said them, and I'll save these for the spoiler segment, but he brought up a couple of things that I was like, oh, I never even thought about that. And that was pretty fascinating. So,
and also
one of the things that we saw,
I'll talk to you in the spoiler section.
We'll talk about it.
But now.
But it is interesting to point out, though, there's nothing wrong with that curiosity. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going into Black Panther with the curiosity, because it is, I mean, again, one of the things that's really important to note, this entire film is based around the loss of T'Challa and the grieving of the characters and kind of how they're moving forward. And which is why it was such a therapeutic experience for the actors, because they basically got to parallel their own grief with the characters' griefs. I remember Lupita Nyong'o said, when Jake and I were on the carpet in DC, that Nakia, her character, was further along in her grief process about T'Challa than Lupita was about Chadwick. And playing Nakia helped her get there. So in all honesty, like when you're going into this film, Chadwick's presence is the key. It's the legacy. It's what he left behind. And of course, there's going to be a curiosity about how they're going to handle it. And the trailers already leaned into it. We already know from the trailers that that T'Challa is dead and they're grieving him. And we don't know who the next Black Panther is going to be. That's how they're marketing it. They're marketing it in a way where you're supposed to be questioning and curious. But and I also think it's being done in a very respectful way. I don't find it exploitive at all in terms of what happened with him. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful legacy film that's going to show you truly the impact and what he left and what he's still giving to us now.
So there's a couple other factors too. There's a new character being introduced to it, but Namor is definitely not on the level that, say, like Spider-Man was and Black Panther was when they were introduced in Civil War. You know, I don't think that Namor, while I think that, and we'll talk about it in the review, I think he's handled incredibly.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people are turning out to this to necessarily see him. But we're in a situation too where, and maybe this was the case with the first Black Panther, like this movie is going to be on every screen available. I don't know what else you're going to be able to go see. Like there might be like one or two other.
I was actually really going to try to go see Banshees this weekend, and I kind of paused and I was like, I don't know if I'm like, I hope it's still playing.
Where is it even going to be?
This is why you need art house cinemas.
Yes, this is a big part of it. So the first Black Panther did 200 million in its opening weekend. It was February. So far, the highest grossing opening, the biggest opening for this year is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It is $187 million. So
domestic, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's what we're trying to guess for Panther. We're going to try to guess domestic. To give you a couple of other big openings from this year, Jurassic World Dominion did 145 million opening weekend. Thor: Love and Thunder did 144. And the Batman did 134. Top Gun did 126, but then I think word of mouth, obviously.
So ironically, the highest grossing film of the year is just barely in the top 5 domestic openings.
Yes, correct. But again, the legs that thing had. And I'm sure Black Panther 2 is going to have a ton of legs, and we can discuss that too, because I want to get into that angle. So let's place our bets. Jake, where do you think that
Jake is my name, actually.
Jake,
wait, what was the opening? Jack. What was the opening domestically of the first one?
200 million.
Domestic. I'm gonna say that I think we're gonna see like a Force Awakens to Last Jedi situation, where like Force Awakens was just such a behemoth within pop culture and such a seismic shift in what was going on in the world at that time, that I think that's an impossible standard to judge the next one, where the next film, being either Last Jedi or Wakanda Forever, is going to have massively successful opening weekend, but not quite where the first one was. So I'm going to go ahead and guess like a 190 where like, yes, it's going to do very well. It's got a good chance of being the top opener of the year at this point. But I don't think it just has that X factor of cultural event that first one had.
Kev, what do you think?
Do you mind repeating the opening number of the number one film opening this year domestically?
187 million for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. May opening, first summer, 187.
I'm gonna go 180 domestic.
180.
Ooh.
Okay. And I think it edges out the original.
Do you?
Wow.
Yeah. I think it gets to 210.
Ooh.
I think the only thing that prevents it from getting to 210 is the length of the film. It's a long film.
It is
a long movie,
yeah.
And there's only so many times that you could screen it in a given day. But I think that there are a lot of people who are going to want to go out and see this on opening weekend. As a way to sort of pay tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Yeah. B, I think there's a lot of people who this is their favorite character and franchise in the MCU. And I think they're going to be super curious to see how it plays out. And it just feels like it feels like an event movie. You know, it feels like the kind of movie that you have to be at to say you saw it. More so than even like they wanted Black Adam to be that, and it wasn't. You know, it wasn't.
My producers in my TV show are like, we've been running interviews for 2 weeks straight. Yeah, I don't think I've ever done this many interviews on my, like I interviewed 7 people on the red carpet in DC, 7 the filmmakers and actors, and Denai Guerrero and Letitia Wright, everybody. And I've been running those interviews since last Monday, and I ran 2 more today.
I am like Kevin is at his station. I'm sort of the nerd at my station. I'm like, you know, sometimes people at my station have to be like, okay, come on, dude. Like, you're being very, very nerd, you know, whether it be Marvel or Star Wars, whatever, like, come on, like, scale it back. Not everyone cares as much as you do. And I had to step out of my morning meeting this morning and walked by at some point and heard them in the meeting talking about Black Panther. And I just popped in and go, like, I have worked here for a decade and been trying to get you people to like talk. I step out of the meeting for 5 minutes and you all collectively start talking about Marvel and Black. I was like, wait. So anyway, to your point, Kevin, yeah, like people who don't normally talk about these things are talking about these things.
Yeah, it's good. Right. I mean, it's weird. The rationale that Sean gave, I don't, it's interesting.
Are you changing your bets? I'm going
to stay at 180 because I do. Yeah. I mean, we're also still in a pandemic. We're also still.
Does it, how much of the factor that like while pre-sales are doing well, but pre-sales are technically below where Black Panther was at the same point?
I also saw that they were below Doctor Strange 2. Yes. And I could be wrong on that. That's why I made the 180 bet, because I think it'll still. I mean, I saw that there were. I saw the number.
There's gonna be a lot of walk-up business too.
Yeah, the only number I've actually seen, the numbers that I've seen, just to give clarity, were I think I originally saw like a 175 domestic. And
yeah, so it was the 175 and then 175 I think to 180. But but whoever's running those models said that it's not surprising if it reaches 200 because given the anticipation for it.
And worldwide, I saw a number of 365. For that's what it was supposed to be opening up at. I don't know. Yeah.
Talking about the legs before we actually get into reviewing it, does it break $1 billion like the original?
Yes.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Well,
and this is what we were talking about. Jake sort of brought this up of saying that between this Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and then Avatar, like, are they going to be the last 2 movies of this year that have a chance to reach number 1? Like, Black Panther will hold on to number 1.
This can do it.
Well, I'm trying to think because Aquaman had the fortunate situation to be able to play through Christmas, but with Black Panther, you know, even if it opens, you know, let's call it 200 million. Let's say it opens 200 million this weekend, and it's got 4 weeks till Avatar. So by the 4th week. Yeah. It'll be in the ballpark of like a $25 million weekend, $30 million weekend. I just I don't see any movie over the next 4 weeks that could potentially open 25, 30 million.
Wild card, but I don't know if it's going to be on enough theaters, is Glass Onion. Is Glass Onion not going to a lot of theaters?
There's no way Glass Onion opens higher than the third weekend of Black Panther or the second. There's no way. Because the third weekend of Black Panther would still be 45 ish, you know, there's no way that Glass Onion is going to get enough theaters, really but it's not going to have the theaters.
Yeah, I'm curious how many theaters it's got. It is getting, it's like AMC, right? Like
AMC Regal are running it.
I just don't think I don't think it's getting the release that it would need to have the kind of numbers to overtake Black Panther. I just don't think it's gonna happen.
That's the question on Knives Out, is if it's in enough theaters and it's allowed enough screens, then I could see by the end of this month, early November kind of situation that it's in, I could see it like taking the number one slot, maybe.
I'm reading this on cnet.com. It says the film will play in theaters for 1 week, November 23rd to the 29th. Netflix said approximately 600 theaters in the U.S. will show the film.
Okay, never mind.
That's not going to happen.
All right. Yeah. Well, still, go see Glass Onion in a theater with an audience, because that's how it's meant to play.
And just to give some clarification there, what's the screen count for Black Panther? I'm guessing 4,400.
It's max, however many we have.
Yes, it has to be. Yeah. Which again, you know, speaks to what we were just saying of like, good luck if you wanted to see something else, you know, and I'm just as bad as anybody.
I think there'll always be a couple of counter programming screens. You know,
it's so funny. I had someone come up to me today at work and basically said, you know, I bought tickets for Black Panther on Saturday, and I'm a little surprised I was able to get tickets. And I said, honestly, that's not a testament to the film doing poorly. It's a testament to the fact that the theater owners are putting it on. They're making sure, because remember the days, I don't know, there used to be this vibe of like, man, it's hard to, everything's sold out, you can't get tickets. That almost made it an event. Now it's at a point where like, I mean, is there really a situation? Is anyone really trying to see a film that they're not able to see because it's sold out anymore? Does that problem exist anymore?
No, although I do know that there were some situations with No Way Home, when I wanted to go back to No Way Home a couple of times, where the only seats that were available were like the first row, you know, or you don't get, if you know you're going with like 2 or 3 people, you can't get those seats together. It's that kind of situation.
Sure.
Which means that the theater is at like 90% kind of thing.
And that's you know, that makes sense.
So for reference, one of the megaplexes near me on Saturday has 37 showings of it on Saturday alone.
Jesus. How many for the Banshees of Inisherin?
Could not compute.
You look it up, it just says, are you kidding me?
Netflix, it says.
It says, did you mean Black Panther?
Let me see. It has 4 showings on Saturday. The same theater.
This is interesting. I just clicked the wrong button on AMC because I wanted to see if it was available. Black Panther was available. And I clicked what they're doing. AMC is apparently doing both movies back to back.
Oh, yeah. They're doing the double feature.
Shooting into the second one.
They're usually really good about doing the, like, remember they did the marathons for Endgame, and they did the marathons for Star Wars and stuff. They're good about putting those packages together.
That's kind of fun. Gabe, are you playing along? You throwing out a bet?
I don't think it beats the original. I put it between 195 and 200. If I have to give you a hard number, I'll say 197.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I wrote all this down. Nothing happens. It literally means nothing.
What was that line on Whose Line Is It? Whose Line Is It Anyway? Where the game where the points don't matter.
Points don't matter.
The rules are made up and the points don't matter.
Yeah, that's basically what we're playing here. Yeah. All right, this week in movies. So there's a film coming to Apple TV Plus called Spellbound, which Gabe says has a pretty good cast. Animated? Is that
animated? Yeah, animated film.
Interesting. You know what's on Apple TV Plus? Although I don't think it's open for everybody, but we have copies of Causeway with Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry. And I've heard that both of them are terrific in it, so I'm gonna give that a watch. And then, of course, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So let's get into our review of the new Ryan Coogler film, and this is going to be our spoiler-free version of the talk, and we will make it very clear before we're going to go into spoilers of how certain things worked. And so I'll start and just go into that. I thought that this movie was incredibly cathartic. It had a near impossible task, you know, to overcome the loss of the franchise's lead character and to try to figure out a way to go on in a way that recasting him didn't make sense because it would have been too soon, according to Kevin Feige. And how do you replace a hero, and how do you pay legacy to the actor who played him in memorable parts, not just in his own film, but in the Avengers films and in Captain America Civil War. Like, Chadwick Boseman left his stamp on the MCU in such a way that you couldn't avoid it. You know, you had to lean into it. And so I was really impressed, and I'm not going to give away any kind of details, but I was really impressed with the way that Ryan Coogler, as a writer and a director, figured out how to maneuver his cast through it. I was blown away by Namor. I thought, I think it's Tenoch Huerta. Is it not pronounced Tenoch?
Tenoch. Yeah.
Tenoch Huerta.
Or Tenoch Huerta. Yeah. Huerta. Yeah.
Just incredible casting. And I mean, at this point, Marvel with their casting it's got to be one of the most impressive things about the MCU's legacy is who they find to play their characters. I don't necessarily know who they've missed on at this point. He's amazing. And I'm really even more fascinated now to see what James Cameron's doing in Avatar with the underwater photography, because the way that they shoot, and Kev will, I'm sure, dive into this. I legitimately believe that they were filming people underwater. That there are performances that happen, you know, the people are giving performances underwater. It's
Ryan
remarkable.
Coogler learned how to swim. I think this is a variety. I'll give them credit for this. He learned how to swim so he could film those scenes.
Oh my God.
I don't believe that he knew how to swim. I'll have to look at the full quote, but he learned to swim so that he could be in the water with the actors.
It's amazing. Well, they figured out how to do it and to make it look good. Because if you've ever scuba dived or done anything underneath the ocean, like it could be incredibly dark and murky, and you don't know what, you're not looking at anything essentially. And those figures look fantastic. He's such a formidable new character. Gabe was mentioning something about the way that they portrayed the wings on his feet. I actually thought that was really cool. I thought the way that they pulled that off was great. I thought he was incredibly strong and powerful, and the motivations behind him are fantastic, and he's going to be a really fascinating character for them to explore from here on out. The dynamic, the power dynamics in Wakanda made it feel a little bit Game of Thrones-esque, and I mean that as a compliment. I was really compelled about where what was happening in Wakanda, because they do factor in what they're doing with the loss of T'Challa, and then where Wakanda stands on the national stage for a couple different reasons that I'm going to kind of leave out of the spoiler section. And in some of those instances might be where the film overreaches just a bit. Like there's subplots that involve people like Everett Ross and a couple other cameos that I was like, I'm not quite sure that they needed to be in this movie. Because at 2 hours and 40 minutes, my only knock on the film is that maybe there's too much story. I think maybe it kind of embraced a little bit too much. I mean, you had a conflict that was basically, you know, Namor versus the Wakandans, and that could have been it. They could have just really gone after that. And there are a couple of subplots that I just thought we can get into them when we get into the spoilers, that I was like, maybe they didn't necessarily need those here. You had plenty of other movie to get to. But the big question that I think that everyone's asking sort of going into it is, how do they treat Chadwick's legacy? And I think you couldn't have done it better. Honestly, I thought they did an incredible job of handling that loss and demonstrating, as Kevin said really well earlier, that when someone's gone, that their legacy doesn't fade away. It's not like their legacy fades away. They're still here with us. Essentially, that was a big takeaway I took from Wakanda Forever. And I guess that's kind of why the subtitle Wakanda Forever works so well, because that element of Chadwick's life is going to be with us forever. Jake, I know you came out of it and we were all in the text thread, and I think you liked it the most out of the three of us. So did I cover most of your bases?
Yeah, that's basically it. That's it. No, I actually am of the belief that I think this one is better than the first. I really like the original Black Panther, but I also have a handful of nitpick issues with it that I think are, for the most part, resolved here. I mean, anyone who, and I'm not going to start naming names, and we're not going to start bringing up people or anything, but anyone who tries to dismiss the genre of comic book adaptations or Marvel films, superhero films,
Scorsese.
I just don't see how you look at what they're able to emotionally accomplish in this film and dismiss it. I mean, Ryan Coogler and Marvel and their team, and look, I've been incredibly critical of particularly Phase 4 of Marvel. Basically everything since Endgame I have found major issues with. And what I love about this film is that it balances being this really beautiful, loving tribute to Chadwick, but it's also a really powerful film about overcoming grief. I know everyone keeps using grief, but it's also overcoming grief, and it's also moving on. And what I respect most about it is that it has the patience to just be itself. It at no point feels like a preview or a trailer for what's to come. It's just, can we just stop for a moment and tell this story about what's happening here? And so many Marvel projects over the last year and a half have felt like 2-hour-long trailers for the next film. And what I love about this film is that because it pauses and says, this is the story we're going to tell right here, we're able to emotionally invest. We're not wondering what that next, if that line was actually actually meant to be an Easter egg for that next thing. We're not waiting to see, which character is going to pop up in the post-credit scene. We're just there. I know it's a weird thing. I guess, I could say I guess I felt the 240 runtime, but at no point did I ever think it was unnecessary. I appreciated that a lot of the themes that oftentimes are not attached to action sequences were given the time to breathe. Like, the action sequences were great, but for me, it was the fact that there was the scenes in between where two characters just need to talk to each other. And those characters, those scenes and those characters were not wasted. Those conversations added a layer and a depth to it. And I just think Coogler's work as a director and a writer and a visionary, I just think were such a step up from what he delivered on Black Panther. I think the visuals were astounding. I think a lot of the secondary and supporting characters from the original film were given chances to really flourish. And it's funny, in the same way that I felt like T'Challa and Black Panther were perfectly used in Civil War, I felt like Ironheart was perfectly used here. Like, we know we're going to get more Ironheart. They're literally shooting it in Chicago right now. But again, it didn't feel like a trailer for the Ironheart show. It just felt like, hey, here's this new character. Isn't she really cool? And I really dug that. Wasn't a fan of her suit. Kind of felt like Walmart Iron Man. But beyond that, a handful of nitpick here or there. This is my favorite Marvel project since Infinity War. I'll say that.
Interesting. Kev?
Yeah. Oh no, I think the film is incredible. I do obviously have some small issues with some of the convoluted elements of the plot. It is a little. I think it's about 20 minutes too long. But outside of that, this is a film that needs to be talked about with an asterisk next to it. I mean, like, the idea of what they were dealing with in the wake of Chadwick Boseman's loss, and you're moving forward with a sequel to one of the most successful films ever made and one of the biggest movies ever made without your leading star, and how to adjust your story, how to bring new characters in. And I just thought it was brilliant. Ryan Coogler is 36 years old. This kid is incredible. From Fruitvale Station to Creed to Black Panther to this, he had a task here that was pretty much damn near impossible, I would argue. I mean, like, you're trying to, one, make a great film. That's that's the most important thing, is trying to make a great film with a great story. But then when you lose your leading star, the pivot to the idea of having the characters grieve T'Challa's death, I thought was such a smart way to handle it, because it was probably the only way the actors could have done it, to be honest. I mean, I can't imagine any other way, because for those actors, I mean, we sit here and talk about movies all the time. These were friendships and family that Chadwick was making throughout that first film, right? I mean, Letitia Wright and the actors in the films became friends and family of his. This
Not even just making it, but promoting it. Like, when they were out promoting, so much of the theme of that movie was the attachment of all the actors to Wakanda and a community,
100%. And that's the thing, is like, so with Coogler, it's funny, when I go back, I rewatched the first one recently. I still love the first one the best. I think it's out of the two, I think it's my favorite, primarily because I obviously love Chadwick in it, but I thought Andy Serkis was great in that movie. I thought Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger was brilliant. And obviously Ludwig's score, which is really amazing here as well. But one of the things that's interesting about this film, really, to me, what stands out is Namor, Huerta, who was, in my opinion, that performance. I mean, you're also coming off of the heels of in my opinion, one of the greatest villains in cinema history. I absolutely think that Michael B. Jordan's performance as Killmonger deserved an Academy Award. I thought that for someone to have tattoos all over their body for the 100+ people they killed, yet for me to actually care for that individual and understand what they're going through and actually mourn their death in a way that even Chadwick's character, T'Challa, in that moment, he doesn't want him to die. He feels terrible for him. And it's just one of those like brilliant performances. And it's not an easy thing to do, to play a character like that and make him somehow likable to the audience. And, you know, but obviously one of the brilliance of the writing of the first Black Panther is that when they tell you his backstory, you understand his arc. You understand what he's striving to do. I feel the same way with Namor. I feel the same way with what Tenoch did here with the role, because it's, again, another quote unquote layered villain. I don't like the term villain. I don't really use it anymore because I think it's too black and white. These are characters that have had, you know, emotional things that have happened in their lives that have brought them to this place, and they believe they're acting in the right. This is not a serial killer. This is somebody who's doing something for what they believe in and for their people. And to me, that's what he kind of embodies. In terms of the film overall, Angela Bassett, I have to, you know, there's that moment in the trailer where she says, "Have I not given everything?" which is obviously, you know, a big part of a scene in the film, which I think is just brilliant. I think she deserves an Academy Award nomination for that performance. And Letitia Wright had a lot on her shoulders, as did everybody else, Lupita Nyong'o and Danai Gurira. I mean, Danai Gurira, by the way, might be next to Namor. Those are my two favorite characters in the whole film. Danai Gurira has a scene on a bridge that is so badass. And they just drop the sound out of it, and the action is just awesome, or they drop the score out. And, you know, it's funny, like some of the things that I don't, is it a spoiler to mention? I'll be vague. Martin Freeman's counter aspect.
We can save that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's a storyline with Martin Freeman that I thought didn't need to be in there. I thought that they could have found a way around.
That's what I was talking about.
That aspect. And not that the characters or the performances aren't interesting. It just to me, there was another way to utilize that aspect. And I think, you know, there's a lot going on. And Jake brings up Riri Williams and Ironheart. You know, that's a character that I feel almost gets not buried, but there's just so much happening that I wish that character was given a little more focus. And I think they could have given it a little more focus had they taken away some of the Martin Freeman things. And I think Martin Freeman, listen, he was great in the first Black Panther. He's a key part to that story. He's obviously a very helpful aspect to Wakanda. And Chadwick's character, obviously, you know, T'Challa was trying to protect him. And because, you know, he was a good person, you know, and I think
to that end, can I use that as a springboard into our spoiler conversation?
Yeah.
Because
so I'll just end on this on no spoilers.
Yeah.
I thought the film was fantastic. Again, I use the word an asterisk because you have to come at it understanding the cards that he was dealt. And every film is up against some type of adversity, but this is a monumental adversity to be able to make a film called Black Panther without your leading actor. And, you know, I think that people are going to be blown away by how seamless it plays and how well it plays in the storytelling world, because Ryan Coogler, you know, he's the reason why this works. At the end of the day, that guy is one of the most talented filmmakers working today. And in anybody else's hands, I don't believe this would have worked. It needed to be done by the people who made the first movie, because they were the ones that needed to grieve and give us that emotional parallel. And that's why, to me, the film works. It's actually therapeutic. It's cathartic. And the score is amazing. I love Rihanna's song, Lift Me Up. And just a heads up for people out there, there's one mid-credit scene, no credit scene at the end of the movie. So if but I still sit through it all just to see all the names, and I like reading the credits, but there's only one credit scene.
So we're going to throw it to spoilers.
I would like to.
I will give us the spoiler break right here for folks listening. And I'll note that we're going to add this to our tier list if you care about that and have enjoyed us playing that little game. We're going to add this to our tier list at the end of the spoiler segment. So if you're skipping the spoiler segment, go see the movie, come back, listen to us talk spoilers, and we'll add it to our tier list as well. But I'll let Sean take it away.
Okay, so spoilers. This is where I'm going to be nitpicky, right? Because I think in general that the movie is really, really strong. But Jake, when you talked about how it didn't really have any commercials for upcoming movies, I thought all the Everett Ross and Julia Louis-Dreyfus stuff, whenever the movie cut back to that subplot, I was like, I forgot they were part of it. And B, Everett Ross felt like a character that they brought back because they were just like, hey, he was in the first one, you know, like, let's bring him back in. Because there's a whole thing with like his cell phone and who's tapping who and listening in on, and he's keeping the Wakandans updated. And I thought there would have been a better way if they felt they had to bring in Everett Ross. Bringing him in the way that they did was a little bit clumsy. And when Contessa, I don't even know her full name, and I know she's going to be important later, but like it was like
it didn't need to be there. And I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but like that whole thing. It's funny when you're watching a film. Sometimes when you're watching movies, you know, generally you're in this vibe where you're cutting back and forth between 4 different stories, right? And there's always one or two of them that you want to stay in, and then you miss when you go to the other ones. But when they would cut to the Martin Freeman stuff, it just didn't gel the same way. And I get the importance of the character. I get what he did in the first Black Panther. He's still great in the role. He's a great actor. I love him. But the whole story with him and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I think, could have been taken out and or just reworked somehow into the movie without those characters.
Her character's name, for the record, is Valentina Fontaine.
Sean, not even close.
It's Contessa something.
I don't think that's right.
Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, but I think she goes by Valentina.
Okay.
From what I can tell.
Elaine. We'll just call her Elaine.
No, I do want to push a little bit on that because I think that it is central to the movie's story that both Wakanda and what is Namor's city called or community called?
Talak. Yeah, please.
It's hard when there's no spoil. Like when people don't have spoilers out, there's no reference to look it up. His people, Wakanda, and then Namor and his people. I think it's necessary for the story for there to be Talokan. Thank you.
Isn't that what M'Baku says? He's like he says that like in the trailer. Doesn't he refer to that?
Sure. My point being, regardless, I think that Everett Ross is necessary to anchor us to the outside world, the world outside of those, because I think that pressure is central to the story of those two communities. So I agree in that. I think once Elaine, once Valentina becomes like more involved in his story, it becomes less important. I do agree with that, but I think that he's fine being there because understanding the machinations of the outside world and the danger that they have is central to sort of how those two communities are tied together, and of course how it ends in sort of truce.
Yeah, I did like that full circle with how, I mean, we're in spoiler territory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so like, I did love that the Wakandans did help break him out at the end. And like, that was cool. I think it's interesting. Like in the beginning, I didn't mind Martin Freeman. It was really when the Julia Louis-Dreyfus aspect of the story kind of came in that I thought, why are we cutting back to this? Why am I in their home about wiretaps? I mean, it just didn't, and I get what it did. I mean, I get why Ryan left it in there. There's no, you have to tell
Kevin
a story.
Told him that has to be in there.
Yeah, I mean, but to me, it just made logical sense in the same way that oftentimes we watch these solo Marvel films and question, well, where was this other Marvel person, or where was that other Marvel? Like, why wouldn't they have heard about this? Why wouldn't they have been like, maybe just logically in my mind, it just made total sense that particularly with the international conflict that is presented in the first act, it made sense to me that whether or not it's like as good as the other stuff we're seeing, I don't think you can go as far as saying it wasn't necessary and you got to cut it out, because to me, it made complete and total logical sense that those two characters would be actively involved in what was going on, particularly because, it's an international conflict and like they would need to know about it and they would have thoughts on it.
All right. So let's rephrase it then. It's not that the storyline isn't important to the story. It just wasn't as, in my opinion, as strong or well written.
Sure.
Because like, anytime I'm watching Namor on screen, I'm locked in. Okay, anytime Denai Guerrero is on screen, I'm locked in. Lupita, Letitia, everybody in the film, I'm locked in. But when they would cut back to that storyline with Martin Freeman and Julie Louis-Dreyfus, I was just like, okay, I mean, I get what the point is, but like, can we get back to? I want to get back to the Namor and Denai. I mean, there was such a, like I mentioned that bridge fight, which is so badass. And to me, that was one of the greatest beats in the film was that waiting for those two characters' name, to get back to.
Oh, I love that she had a rival. Yeah, I love that she had a rival
it was so
in the Talokan community.
Her character, yeah, is amazing.
The other element I want to bring up, the part that Kevin was previewing before we went into it, when we were doing the "What are we about to see" kind of thing, and it's a really interesting point that I'm a little surprised we didn't see it, is that Kevin thought that we were going to see other Avengers characters at the funeral, that other Marvel characters would have
interesting
would have
Evans
gone.
comes back, or like I don't know.
Would it have been a respectful thing, because it's a very serious thing in their culture, like it's a very spiritual thing?
I'm glad they didn't do it.
It also would have been so distracting. It would be like, oh my god, look, there they are. Right. Like it would have been so distracting.
I think I'm first of all, I'm glad they didn't do it, because it would have been way distracting. But we were just thinking, we were spitballing ideas of what was, because remember at this point we didn't know that Letitia Wright was Black Panther. Mm-hmm. We didn't know, we didn't know a lot of different. We didn't, a lot of things happen in this film that we haven't even touched on yet. The Killmonger cameo is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie.
So good.
Which
we talked about that on the show, is that they could possibly do it, and I completely forgot about that. And when the Queen dies and they're getting to that scene, I was like, oh, that's why she died before this scene, because she has to have somebody that she's going to talk to. And I was like, that was my expectation. And then he showed up and I was like, oh, you got me. Like, what a surprise. Yeah. I totally forgot about him.
Yeah. Was amazing. And
he's great.
Again,
he's great.
Isn't it? I mean, I'm telling you, that performance is so damn good. It's funny.
A testament to the fact that they show us a lot more in the trailer sometimes than we realize. Because if you watch the teaser closely, that clip is in the teaser, but he is just deleted out of it. Like you see her standing in that room with the fire, but he's not there.
Is the throne there?
I need to see it again, because are you sure?
Interesting.
Because I have to look at the shot again, because I know the shot Jake's talking about. Are you sure he hadn't disappeared by that point in the scene and she was just getting ready to come back?
Either way.
I was trying to remember, because he's on the throne, and it's funny because we had a lot of discussions on the show about who Black Panther was going to be, and I was very adamant that Michael B. Jordan was going to come back and be Black Panther, which I was obviously wrong about. But I do believe that his presence was what helped ignite her to find the path that she needed to find, even though he was, it's a negative aspect. He's coming at it from a quote unquote villainous aspect, but it was what she needed to hear. That's why everybody asks her who you saw, and she never even. I don't think she tells anyone.
She doesn't want to admit to it now. But this is what I find really fascinating, is that now that Killmonger, we know that he is on the board, that they could have used him in some way, shape, or form. Like, how would they have used him had Boseman survived? If they did a traditional Black Panther sequel.
I still think that Chadwick's that T'Challa brought him in, healed him with the beads,
right?
And I think that
well, he's dead
Jordan's
though now.
No, I'm saying now he is. I'm talking about the original plot of what the sequel would have been.
No,
and again, I'm still standing by. Listen, Michael B. Jordan did come back. I wasn't that wrong.
You were.
There was a giant difference between he came back and he's going to be Black Panther,
and he came back as a ghost. Those are two different things.
But I want to say. One of the elements that I want to say that I love that they did was because once you realize that they're going to, in story, deal with the loss of T'Challa, is like, how is he going to die? And I love that from the opening shot, it's Shuri,
a very sudden opening shot,
race the clock to save him, because
I'm sorry.
That's what
I was already in tears just with the Marvel Studios,
the silent Marvel Studios.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Can we talk about that? Like oh my god, that was beautiful.
It was purple. I was like, oh, this film's gonna crush me, huh? We're starting with the logos already getting me. Like Jesus Christ.
But wait, now Kev brought up a point too that I found really interesting, was that they used the shots of Chadwick in the Marvel logo, and Kev said that stole focus away from when they did the montage of Chadwick at the end, because it was a lot of the same shots.
Because the point I was making was, when the Marvel logo comes up in the beginning of this film, it's all T'Challa and all Chadwick. And it's a lot of his scenes from Black Panther. And obviously there were scenes from Civil War and other films that they had done. And it's funny because like I'm of two thoughts about this. I thought that was a brilliant way to play with the logo and have that as an honor to Chadwick. But then later on, remember, we don't see him in the film except for on that billboard,
which and I think is beautiful, because I think so much of the film, the parallels are really crazy. Right. They talk about T'Challa sort of suffering in silence, literally, and it was like, wow. So you went as far as like making that parallel that far. But I think like that mural, like in the costume design and all of that stuff, everyone who's building this movie had a chance to put something in that was like their real world grief. And that mural, I think, is very particularly not a wide shot of T'Challa in Wakandan garb. It's not him as Black Panther. It is his face, and it is as much just Chadwick Boseman as it could be T'Challa. And I thought that was such a beautiful touch. I think those scenes.
I think the point that I was making with Sean was I think that moment later in the film when we did flash back to him would have hit me harder had I not seen what they did at the beginning. But I
think you could argue that it would be weirder if it was the Hulk and Cap and like the usual logo. Like you
definitely
could argue
would have been
weird.
Or just do a standard Marvel Studios and put nothing. And then again, listen, when that hit at the beginning of the film, I loved it. I thought it was incredible, and I have no problem with it. It was just that I feel like I would have had a deeper emotional moment seeing him in those flashbacks had I not seen it prior in the Marvel logo. I don't know why that
why
hit
do
me
I
that
also
way.
feel did they not already do that? Did they do it once before with all Chadwick photos?
They did. Oh, they did it on Disney Plus. I think it was like, I could be wrong. I remember when Disney Plus, I thought there was a Disney Plus logo change for Chadwick specifically, but I could be
I saw something else where they did that. Anyway,
and that being said, I have to ask this question. So, I mean, honestly, it feels really weird to talk about this openly. It's kind of strange.
We're in spoiler territory.
Let's get to that mid-credit scene.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So, okay, now I have to ask you guys this, because one of the things I asked Letitia Wright on the carpet was, one of my favorite scenes from the first Black Panther was, it's like this really like goofy sequence with her and Chadwick about the royal sandals that he's wearing. And she's like, what are those? And he's like, you don't like my royal sandals. And I always thought, I just love that moment because his brother, sister, is just like a goofy little funny thing. But Letitia told me that there is a homage and a reference to the sandals in this movie that he wears. And again, she told me that after I saw the movie, but now I want to go back and watch it. The only place I could think that reference could be would be at the end of the film, where we're in mid-credit scene territory now, sitting on the beach. I didn't look what she was wearing, but maybe she was wearing the sandals. I don't remember, because I didn't know until she told me on the carpet that there was a reference to it. Yeah. And so in this scene, for people who were now in spoiler territory, we meet T'Challa and Lupita Nyong'o's character's son. There's obviously an idea of whether or not this character will go on to be Black Panther. It's a little boy. We're not really sure. But it does explain Lupita's
That kid was cute as hell too. He was such a charming performance.
And it was great. And like to hear, for the movie to end, again, credit to Ryan Coogler, because Coogler and Ludwig wrote Lift Me Up with Rihanna.
Oh, did they really?
That's they were part of the writing process. So I think when the film ended, it's funny, and this is something we talked about when we got out of the movie, that mid-credit scene was so powerful that I kind of wish it was part of the actual movie before the credits rolled. But now I get it, because once the credits roll and then you get the Rihanna song, then you pop to that. It is beautiful, because the song brings you to a completed arc of emotion of what you just kind of went through. And then you get this beautiful futuresque scene of the legacy continuing, and then you really understand why Lupita left, because at first you're like kind of like why did she go for all that time? Now we get it. But yeah, so I guess the question now becomes, does Letitia continue with the Black Panther until the kid's old enough, or I don't know? And then I mean Namor, that's all. I mean he doesn't.
Here's the thing about those characters being introduced and a young kid who may eventually become Black Panther. You can treat Black Panther in the Marvel Cinematic Universe differently than you would other characters, because there is only one Hulk. For the longest time, there's Hulk, right? Like, yes, there's She-Hulk, but like it's not like there's like a replacement for Hulk or a replacement for Spider-Man, or but Black Panther has been multiple Black Panthers, over the generations.
Same with Iron Man.
T'Challa's father was T'Chaka, and so it's you can pass the legacy down. It's almost built into the fabric of the character. We might not see a Black Panther sequel, a traditional Black Panther sequel, for years from now, and because of the snap. And it was funny, we had a conversation with Nate Moore, who's one of the producers on Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and he talks about how the snap has really kind of messed with the timeline of the MCU in terms of matching it up with the year that we are in. Like, it's hard to tell what year the action is even in, because there's certain stories that are being told like right after the snap, and some that still involve like the time in the snap. I actually thought going into it that the entirety of Black Panther Wakanda Forever could have been set during the snap when T'Challa was gone. Now it would temporarily, put a pin in. This explains why he's not here, kind of thing. So it's better that they ripped the Band-Aid off and just dealt with his loss specifically. But I think that kid could eventually become his.
Because he. Okay, all right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, they would have had to eventually come around to explain, what happened to him eventually.
My only other criticism, Sean, you agreed with me on this. I think I wish that Letitia's entrance as Black Panther was stronger. I didn't, and again, I get, because again, I think the arc of her becoming Black Panther is really great, because it's the legacy, and she loses her mom and her brother, and it pivots her into this selfless nature of what this character is and what Black Panther can do. But they entrance her in an M'Baku sequence, which I thought was, I don't know. And I guess maybe this is just based on our anticipation for it and who's going to be Black Panther. Could it possibly be
because you'd seen that clip before? Like that was a closing clip of the second trailer.
It had nothing to do with that. I just felt like she was literally dropped into a scene that was already, there was already things going on in that scene that were thematically and we were working with. I feel like she deserved like.
You didn't get a fight scene entrance. She got a conversation entrance, which I agree is
Did
not
you guys find it underwhelming? Did you guys find it underwhelming
for
when
me,
it happened?
It was just more along the lines of, like I said, like I wish it was a scene that I was like, oh, okay, that's what that scene is. Like I really wish they hadn't put that. Like there are 10,000 clips they could have shown in the back, act of the film. You had to show like that. I feel like I would have dug it more if I hadn't been airing that clip over and over again on my show.
Do you think Coogler underplayed it a little bit on purpose so that it was just a seamless like transition? Like,
okay, well, let me ask you this.
When you're getting the next Black Panther, you would imagine, I mean, again, this is just the way movies have molded my mind to think about these things. But when somebody's being introduced that large, like think about Spider-Man's entrance in Civil War. Just to give me, that's like one of the greatest entrances of all time. Like into the airport. And I just feel like, maybe not dropping her into a fight scene particularly, but I think that moment should have been a little more on her.
I don't think it's as deflated as your. I don't think it's
deflated completely. I think it's
okay. But wrong word. But I think you're underplaying how it was still a grand entrance. It was still a symbol of the nation of Wakanda, and all these leaders and all these peoples were in this moment of like, what do we do? And she still comes in. She still has a hero landing. They still pan up to reveal the suit and then reveal her face. And then she's there as this like symbol of power for these people that are in a tough, like it's still a big entrance. It's just not, the Bifrost crushing a bunch of aliens and a guy coming in with his new axe. Like it's not as, grandiose as that.
That's such an.
But I would still say it's for the character moment that it needed to be. It was still a big entrance for her to come in and that part of the story.
Also, for me, I think a big part of it was that like I just kind of assumed it was going. Like I went into that movie thinking like it's going to be Letitia. Like it should be.
Doesn't.
So but like I feel like we keep making a big thing about like. I feel like everyone I know just sort of assumes it's going to be so. For me, it was just sort of like okay, even the whole like first and second act is about there is no more Black Panther. There was a part of me that was like okay, let's go. Like,
there was a moment watching it when I actually thought maybe it was going to become Lupita's character.
Me too, dude. When Lupita shows up, I thought the same thing, and I actually think that would have been a great idea too. But I think you can't deny the connection of brother sister. She had her brother's DNA essentially within the suit, right? So I mean, it's one of those things where it makes sense that they did it that way.
I want to get to an element that I thought was incredible, which is additional vibranium on the floor of the ocean, and that the Talakans are using it to essentially fortify themselves. Terrific.
Yeah.
In a movie that's based about like, hey, the only stash of this extremely valuable, mineral or substance is in Wakanda, and is Wakanda going to be able to defend themselves from getting it? The fact that it was readily available on the ocean floor was fantastic. I also really do like the idea. I love the idea of Riri Williams being so smart that she built the machine that tracks it. I just felt there were elements in the Riri Williams storyline that felt like the pacing of them felt odd.
Yeah.
There's the moment where they like the three of them end up in the garage and the agents are like approaching the garage.
That was a cool oneer though. Like they were going back and forth with the camera to all. I actually like that scene.
It was cool, but I think I felt the way that Jake said he felt, where it was like, okay, come on. Come on.
It's a little strange. Strange maybe is not the right word, but it's so easily could be its own movie where you meet this girl who's a genius and she's going to MIT and she doesn't know that she accidentally had this. It'd very much be like the first Transformers where like she didn't know that she had this giant alien thing that she was a part of, and then wow, the Wakandans are going to come recruit me, and like it could be a really badass story we've kind of seen before, but I enjoy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Of this kind of genius kid getting picked up and swept into this giant, international conflict. Like it could have been that, but it never quite. Like she just was there and was fun.
Because there's even a lot of dramatic heft in the Riri Williams story about like her father has been killed, and I think it's referenced. I think it does. There's like a line of it, but like it's something you could have hung in. And I hate to
they're saving a lot of that for the show, I'm sure.
For Ironheart, I'm sure they are. And I hate to do that. I hate to be like, oh, give her a Disney Plus show instead, because I do think she was worthy of the big screen. But in this movie, there was already so much going on.
Before we get to the tier list, I did want to talk about how great the final fight was between Namor and Black Panther. Letitia Wright as Black Panther. I thought that was great. My only knock against it, and maybe this is a personal thing. No, I saw it in IMAX, and I just the way people intercut IMAX footage with widescreen footage is just really distracting for me. It's like when you're watching a football game and then they cut to a really cinematic Bud Light commercial that's in widescreen, and it's like, but it's mid-scene cut through. I just find it so distracting. I love the IMAX format, but I would just rather the whole movie be in widescreen than
was it cutting back and forth like mid-fight?
Yeah, so all the stuff that was at sea on like the submarine and that fight, that was all IMAX, and then the fight on the beach was widescreen. So when they were intercutting between the two, it was like a drastic jump.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
Again, maybe that's to me. I had the same problem with Eternals. I get that you can't shoot everything in IMAX because those cameras are what they are. Yeah. But I was like, I would just rather you didn't have IMAX then. Yeah. For me personally.
That's why if anybody listening to this, go back and listen to our Denis Villeneuve conversation for Dune. Like in that instance, like that is just random in a way. But when you do Dune and you make it a narrative decision that you're going to punch to IMAX and even with like Nope and stuff like that. Wait, what's going on here? I'm hearing music.
Something started playing on my phone. Sorry, Gabe.
No worries.
The kid. Man, ever since you wrote a second book, you've really become an asshole.
I'm going to play music in this segment.
With great power available now.
That was Sean trying to play us off, Kevin. He was like, all right, these guys are going too long.
I also just realized, and forgive me if I was saying it wrong, is it Denai Guerrera or Denai Guerrera? All right, so I've been saying it right then. Okay, good.
I gotta be honest, of the 4 people to give you the right pronunciation, Sean's the one I would trust the least.
I just want we get off these shows sometimes, and like one of the biggest fears I have is mispronouncing someone's name, and I always text Gabe, I'm like, Gabe, please tell me I did it right. No, I know, but I want to be respectful because there's a lot of different names in this film. So
do we want to get to our tier list?
Let's go.
Yeah. And
Jake, anything you wanted to add in the spoiler section?
Did we miss anything? Angela Bassett's death, I thought was. I didn't think she needed to die.
Speech, brother. Her
performance was incredible.
Kugler, so obviously brilliant, so smart. He just let her go and didn't cut away. And just that one shot of her talking about, I lost my son, I lost this, that, yelling at Denai's character. Freak, dude. That is that I will say, I love Marvel, but rarely do they give you enough emotional weight for that kind of performance. Years and years built up, like to Tony's death made that emotional for us and all that stuff. But like, that's why you hire her. That's why she gets hired.
That was the line.
Scene. And just a reminder of how good, for an audience, of a generation that maybe only knows her from Black Panther. Like just a reminder of how much of a freaking legacy actress she really is. Like, Angela Bassett is one of the best working today.
And go back, and then that is not like a shameless plug for my interview with her, but I asked her about that line.
Full of shame, actually.
Yeah, full of shame. The thought process that went into that line on her end,
I watched that,
was unbelievable. Like she was talking about it, when she says, "Have I not given everything?" Angela Bassett is saying that through the lens of hundreds of years of history. And it's not just that moment. Like when I heard her say and explain what was going into that line, the line already is earth shattering to begin with. Mm-hmm. But, to be honest with you, I love her as an actor. I think that was the line that she was born to deliver as an actor. I really believe like her entire emotional career, everything she's done leading up to that, have I not given everything? Like that to me, I have never felt that much raw emotion in one line of dialogue than I can't remember the last time I felt that. And I, and again, she's obviously given a lot of amazing performances, but that line delivery, when I heard it in the trailer, it shook me up. When you hear it in the film, it's even more impactful. And that was coming from a real place. I don't even think that was acting. That was just coming from someone for real, I thought. So cool. Amazing.
All right.
Tier list.
The tier list we go.
C.
Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. This is your first time joining us and you don't know what this is. This is our tier list, our Marvel tier list that we have built over the course of a couple of months here. You can find on our feeds wherever you found this, us going through the several phases and adding them. How this works, we're all going to go and give our letter grade on this tier list of where we would put the film, and then we take that average and we place it on this list, and that is why this list looks like a hunk of crap, because it is not one person's opinion. It is an amalgamation. This is the Rotten Tomatoes.
This is a physical representation of our frustration.
And I love it. I love it. I love it because of that. I love it because
every time we bring it back up, I look over and I'm like, whoa.
who died on a hill for us to put that there?
Moon Knight's an A?
Yeah, you're damn right it is.
That's one I just saw.
Yeah. Damn right it is. You guys don't know.
That's great.
Sean, where would you put it? Actually, I'm gonna take a step back quickly. I think Kevin still hasn't seen this. We need to catch up on Werewolf by Night. Okay. Sean, where do you put Werewolf by Night?
Werewolf by Night is going in the B category. Okay. I think that it is a fun exercise that does a very good job at what it sets out to do. But I think that its scope is just of, this is a fun little one-off story.
Yeah.
And Giacchino had a great time playing around with practical effects. The black and white is a great choice. I love who's the main guy in it?
Oh, yes. Bernal.
Garcia Bernal.
Yes.
Terrific performance. But I don't think it elevates itself to an A. Jake, do you disagree?
No, I would also give it a B because like there's a ceiling. It's a 52-minute sort of pretty singular location, very fun, tip of the cap to a very specific genre of film. I think it does everything that it sets out to do. I think it does at the best possible level, but what it sets out to do is a fairly small scale thing. Yeah. So I think the best it could possibly be is a B, and it is that. So I'd say job well done to them.
I'm also B for the same reasons. I think what it's trying to do, it does extremely well. And there's no knock against it as a B. It's just hard to it's hard to compete with Avengers Endgame.
Sure.
when you're this. Kevin, I will implore you to catch up on it. I finally caught up on it recently.
I want to see it.
The filmmaking in it fun. Is
you could like
so
legit
cool.
download it on your iPad on Disney Plus and watch it on a plane. Like probably watch it while you're waiting on your plane. It's 52 minutes.
The use of black and white allowing them to use so much blood and stuff that you wouldn't get in a Marvel film is really cool. The way that he uses obviously like makes it look like that sort of classic monster movie, but he really leans into it in sort of like the compositions and the way he plays with shadows and light. And like using, like some flashing sources and stuff to sort of reveal things in these certain ways. There's this great one shot where it just sort of slowly is pushing down this hallway. And then the monster in the movie.
That's the shot, right? Like that's the, if you had to.
Yeah. So as it's happening, it's a fight scene and it's these like soldiers or whatever, these guards like fighting, but it's slowly pushing. The camera never changes. And as it's pushing in the back behind them, is a security door slowly lowering at like the same pace as the camera pushes in, but it's all backlit. So you see like on the walls and everything. And because it's black and white, it's just like, it's very, the contrast is what he's playing with. It's like this line in the frame of the light coming down as this fight scene's happening. Brilliant filmmaking. Giacchino, obviously, we know is a great storyteller from his music alone. And I hope we see more from him. So yeah, great. And I think you should definitely watch it for the film making. Wakanda Forever. Sean, what letter grade do you give it?
This is tough because I think I would be in the A-B+ range. So because we don't have that, I'm gonna say that it's an A. Because of the amount of things that it accomplishes, while acknowledging that it has, in my opinion, a couple of things that hold it back slightly. And if it went to B, I'd understand, but I think overall it deserves the
A. Kevin?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm like in A- territory. Like I'm giving, and I think, but I also, again, I used that asterisk earlier about, there's no way of watching this film without understanding and knowing what they had to do with it. So, while I do believe that there's, probably 20 minutes that could have been cut out, some shaving of some of the storylines that were a bit convoluted. I thought it was, it's really is an incredible achievement what he did. I don't know how they did it, and thankfully in terms of like getting through it and dealing with it. And remember, one of the key things that I think people are forgetting is none of the actors knew he was sick.
Sure.
And so
to your point, I was talking to Sean before we were recording, and I don't mean in the context of us giving like a fully thought out review in a conversation. I more mean this like on Twitter. I was telling him, I was like, just even in that opening scene, I immediately was like, I don't have time for anybody that wants to tweet a nitpick. Like this is clearly like such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Of these group of artists dealing with the grief of a real world thing that is directly tied to the story. And then they are able to reflect it in the story. Like I was like, this is such a, I don't really care if you think that the CGI was a little off in one scene. Like, why is that? I have no time for that. This is We should appreciate it for what it is. It's small problems, like I said, in the context of a conversation. That's another thing. But
well, that's kind of why I said
it's such a beautiful story.
That's why I said asterisk earlier, because normally there are things that are in this film that would bother me more, but you can't. You're watching it with a different lens. Like you're not sitting down with the lens that you sat down with for the first Black Panther. You're sitting down with the lens of the reality of Chadwick Boseman not being here. And so there is a certain level of understanding that goes into some of the decisions they made, because and that's not like it's not me being a critic and going, oh, I'm going to let certain things pass by. It's just the nature of what this is. I mean, and as Gabe said just now, it's like, you know, it's kind of brilliant that they were able to parallel the story in real life to the story of the movie and let these actors breathe through the filmmaking.
And like I said, more than just the actors, like the set design, costume design, like I feel like everyone who was able to creatively influence the film was given some sort of space within their craft to feel that in there. Like I thought that was a beautiful thing. Jake,
this film it kind of transcends movies in a weird in a way, kind of like the first film did. This is a really powerful thing, and I think people are not really ready for how emotional this is going to be for a lot of people, especially that opening scene. And I think
210 million, baby.
We'll see.
Jake, I assume you're at least an A, because I think you were.
This is a solid A for me. Every individual aspect of this film is firing on all cylinders. It's every single, whether it's above or below the line, is working at the top of their game, whether it's, the actors and the direction that you see on. And I honestly even think, I know I had a lot of issues with a lot of the special effects work in the original Black Panther, but I think a lot of the special effects work here is among some of Marvel's best, and some of the imagery is among Marvel's best. And I think,
Khan was so sick.
Yes. I just think so that like this movie is a quintessential A Marvel film.
Yeah.
Let's shout out Ruth Carter too, because
oh my God.
I think did she win the Oscar for the first movie?
Yes, she did.
Yes.
So are the only two Oscars for the first movie Ludwig and Ruth Carter?
I believe so.
Okay. I mean, not only, it's really awesome for a Marvel film to have two Oscars. That's amazing. But Ruth Carter did obviously the costumes for the first film, did the costumes for this one. One of the things about the Black Panther films that you really, really understand is how brilliant and beautiful the costume designs are. Like when you're just sitting in a scene in Wakanda, and just all I mentioned the royal sandals earlier, little things like it's so real.
Excuse me, sorry. Their production design, Hannah Beachler and Jay Hart also won the Oscar.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Do we think that, because I know no actor has ever been nominated for a Marvel film, do we think Angela Bassett has a shot?
Yeah,
I think it depends on how this first weekend goes. I think if audiences pick up on that, and I think if audiences are loud enough about how great that is, then yes. But I think it's the sort of thing where the Academy could very easily, like, if there's not a lot of discussion around it, it could get overlooked.
And we also have to get, so actors and supporting actors are both very stacked this year, because you've got two films like She Said and Women Talking that are likely each themselves going to feature multiple women and multiple actors and supporting actors category.
Lead, wouldn't Kazan and Mulligan be leading?
Samantha Morton is getting a lot of buzz out of that movie, though, and I haven't seen it, but I understand her performance is pretty strong.
I don't know if there's an embargo, and I've seen it, but yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
I'll just put a big bleep over that.
Yeah. That's going to be a thing. Kevin comes back around and wants taken out.
Wait, so is Samantha Morton the same actress who did the original voice in Her and then got replaced by?
Yes, Scarlett Johansson. Yeah,
I always think of her. Wasn't she the precog in Minority Report?
Yes, she was.
That's who I think of.
Yes. Oh my God.
She's the mom in Jim Sheridan's In America, which I thought was a terrific film.
She is amazingly underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. She's one of those actors that every time she shows up, you're like, oh, this is gonna get better.
Damn,
unlike Mark Rylance.
I forgot of
the opposite.
What's
of Mark
your deal with Mark Rylance? Mark Rylance is fantastic. You're
terrible.
Mark Rylance is fantastic.
Who disagrees with you?
Same thing over and over again.
Everybody.
Steven Spielberg does. Steven Spielberg disagrees with me. He uses them all the time.
Stallone's on your side, though.
Stallone doesn't like him?
Well, no. Rylance beat Stallone for the Oscar.
For Creed? That's funny. All right. So
anyway, Black Panther. We're leaving spoilers. No more spoilers for the rest of the show. And the next
time that we talk about a Marvel tier list will be for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, baby. So get excited.
For a C movie. Just kidding.
Dude, the trailer kind of
looks like a C.
Yeah, can we go ahead and put it in the C category now?
Speaking of precogs, I'm gonna go ahead and plan out the rest of Marvel's.
Kev is the biggest Ant-Man fan.
That's why I joke
on the show. So he's gonna listen. Jonathan Majors, it's in my opinion right now, can do no wrong. All right. Let's get to this week's Blend Game, which is brought to you by AMC Theaters on Demand, where you can buy and rent your favorite movies from major franchises to cult classics such as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is why we are playing this week hashtag Marvel Duo Blend. So I want you guys to check the description for links and more information on AMC on Demand, and you can learn how AMC Stubs members can get some added benefits. So a big thank you to AMC for supporting the show the way that they do. Let's get right to hashtag Marvel Duo Blends, and Jakey, kick us off. Who'd you go with?
Mine is so cliche, and I really did try to find a more unconventional pairing to try to like have a fresh perspective or a fresh take, but I couldn't pick anyone other than Cap and Bucky. Okay. If only because Kevin. Okay. Well, we can do this together. But basically, like
you guys are like the real Cap and Bucky
of the show.
You know, yeah. You guys decide who's who. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say which one of us is what. And Kevin, you have one arm, and I'm just really old and don't want to be left alone.
I don't want to be responsible for killing Iron Man's parents.
I leave that decision to Donovan. However, he wants to Photoshop you guys into that.
I mean, basically, the reason I chose them is because so many of the pairings that I thought of yielded the adjective fun. Like, oh, they're really fun to watch together, and man, like there are some fun jokes, and it's fun to watch those on the big screen together. I think of like Thor and Hulk and stuff like that. But Cap and Bucky add just this level of weight and emotion, and that is just this center core of what made Civil War and Winter Soldier and even into like the Infinity War and the Endgame, that made those films feel so weighted. And I think that friendship is if anything what saved Falcon and Winter Soldier, because that weight of your remembrance of their relationship. I just think that like that friendship from the very beginning of when these films were still owned by Paramount, which is a crazy thing. Kevin, remember when we used to do Paramount junkets for Marvel films, which like blows my mind. They make each other better throughout the entirety of the Infinity Saga. And they make their story strengthens the stories of other Avengers, like Iron Man, like Tony Stark's, one of Tony Stark's, Robert Downey Jr.'s best moments and best performances comes as a result of the relationship between Cap and Bucky. Like that moment when Iron Man when Tony realizes what happened to his parents, like that whole sequence is a top 3 Marvel moment. And it's because of them. So as much as I wanted to try to find an unconventional fun pairing, I kept being drawn back to the weight and the heart and the significance of those two and that friendship and what that friendship meant to the entirety of the Infinity Saga, from First Avenger all the way to Endgame.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because so Captain America Winter Soldier is still my favorite MCU film, next to Infinity War. But what was brilliant about Winter Soldier was we obviously had already known the relationship between Bucky and Cap from Captain America for the first Avenger. What I loved about Winter Soldier was that push-pull of Cap trying to understand why his friend would be doing what he's doing, but at the same time understanding that there's a real threat to the world and to what's going on. And to me, what made those scenes so brilliant is that you knew in Cap's heart that he was going to try, hopefully, to bring him back over to the light. You know what I mean? And once you understand fully what's happening with him and why he is the way he is, and Jake brings up that moment when we see the car crash, is that in Civil War and we learned that Bucky was responsible for Iron Man's death, and obviously Jake brings up a great point about how that implements later on
what did I say? Death. You said Iron Man's death.
Iron Man's parents' death. I'm sorry. I apologize. So, and then obviously that fight is incredible at the end. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm with Jake because to me, that's the most emotionally grounded aspect for me in the MCU up until that point. And I loved those two characters initially. I loved that they were torn apart and then brought back together. I think that Sebastian Stan and Chris Evans both bring such a beautifully grounded element to these super insanely unrealistic worlds. I mean, at the end of the day, what makes Marvel so great is that we know that we're watching is the impossible, but at the same time, they make the impossible real in our minds because of the grounded nature. That's why, we're talking about Angela Bassett in Black Panther or Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. When you bring in these caliber actors to bring these characters to life, you're giving them a reality that is, going through the emotions of a character who killed his best friend's parents, or I'm sorry, who killed his best friend's partner's parents. I had that right? And to be able to kind of like navigate that. Do I have that right? I think I have that right.
Yeah. Are you able to navigate that? I
can't navigate it. I've been talking for the past 12 hours. So I'm sorry. No, but in all honesty, I that's my favorite duo when I think about it. And it's amazing.
All right. I went in a different direction. And if we only had Spider-Man Homecoming, I would have chose Peter and Ned because I thought that their relationship in Homecoming was terrific. And then Ned just went off the board. So I went with Thor and Loki, who I think have been a fascinating duo from the time that they've been introduced and have been allowed to go through so many different evolutions. But where it starts in Brana's film is a son who is in line to take over the throne and isn't worthy of it, and the adopted son who is never going to get a shot. And that dynamic is terrific. And I was never a big Thor fan. I didn't read Thor comics growing up. I still, even though I have the Marvel Unlimited series, I try to dip into Thor every once in a while, and depends on who's writing him. Sometimes he's really interesting, and sometimes it's just super dry with the mythology of Asgard and all that jazz. But Hiddleston and Hemsworth are so perfectly cast and are able to play such different versions of those characters depending on what the story needs. Like Loki was so good in Thor that they made him the main villain of Avengers, because Hiddleston was just knocking it out of the park. And the dynamic between Thor and Loki, like there's a point in Avengers, in the first Avengers movie, where Thor says to him, "Look around at what you're doing. Like, what do you think you're going to rule when this is finished? You're destroying everything." And he's the mess up brother who can't get anything right. And then the way that transitions into Thor: The Dark World, and the way that it then pivots into Ragnarok, where they're almost teammates, and have to figure out how to work together. And then Thor embraces him as his brother. All those elements are played so well because these two actors are so spectacular.
Yep.
Then you get to the death of Loki in Infinity War. And it's heartbreaking. Like it's a devastating death. Now Marvel undercuts it by bringing him back for his television series, and now we're getting into the multiverse. We're going to go a million different directions. But I think that those characters have been allowed to evolve and play in different ways depending on which filmmaker is taking over them and what the story demands. And I know that there are people who have some problems with directions where Thor went to. I was okay with those. I thought in character it worked just fine. But anytime you sort of paired up Thor and Loki together, I was surprised at how much I loved them and their interplay. Again, stating that I wasn't huge fans of those characters going up.
It is a great pick.
I think those actors are great. So that's who I went with. The audience for Marvel Duo Blend, and we had so many people who responded to this one, so we really appreciate you guys chipping out. Well, I'll start there. LT Snyder said, "I know it's a trio and not a duo, but I don't care. Spider-Man and Spider-Man and Spider-Man for the win."
You can't do that. That's not the rules.
Yeah, it's not a duo. It's a trio. Save that one for Marvel Trio Blend.
Yeah, we're just going to keep going.
But I do kind of love that, though.
What are your favorite six characters to put together? They do that quite often.
Dino Paulo says Drax and Mantis, which is a very good choice. Chalice says Cap and Bucky. Ariel Pace went with Natasha and Yelena, very touching. Wendy says Yelena and Kate Bishop. Okay, I want to see a little bit more of that before I see where they go. Philip Addison says Korg and Meek. Killer. Good choice. Christina went with Thor and Loki. Drew Jackson, Lily, and several others went with Rocket and Groot. Again, another really great selection. So that's really strong. Thank you, everybody, for participating in hashtag Marvel Duo Blend. And once again, thank you to our sponsors for this segment, AMC Theaters, and pointing you directly to their AMC Theaters on demand, where you can rent all of the Marvel movies that contain these duos. All right. So for next week, on behalf of She Said, you can reach out playing hashtag Carey Mulligan Blend. Hashtag Carey Mulligan Blend.
Good one.
Play on social media or let us know your pick via email at realblend@cinemablend.com.
Let me ask you this, Sean, by next week, Kevin and I will have seen She Said. Will you have seen She Said by next week?
So my screening in the market here is the Tuesday that we're going to be at Glass Onion. So I fear I'm going to have to miss it.
I saw it this week, and I just looked online. Rotten Tomatoes already has reviews up. It is incredible.
Really?
You hear that, Rotten Tomatoes? Add that to your score list.
No, Kevin McCarthy. I meant because I was trying to figure out if there was an embargo, but it is you're right. Incredible.
Well, you know what? Okay, so here's the thing. They did say that there's an LA screening of it on Tuesday. I guess if I found out what time it was, because my flight out on Tuesday is late. I know everybody listening to this really cares. Yeah. It's super compelling. Here's where we start breaking down our schedule. But I guess there's a possibility that I will have been able to see She Said, so maybe we can see if it factors in. But I think I have my choice, and it isn't that, unless I see it, and it's great. All right, our next premium episode drops on Monday again.
But maybe it is.
But maybe it is. Who knows? We'll find out.
Wait, it might end up being. You never know. Her performance is unbelievable in that movie.
All right. So check the description if you want to find out how to sign up for the premium episodes. Follow us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovach. And the show is at Real Blend until next week, where we're back together and reviewing the hottest new movies reaching your local movie theaters from Hollywood.
Is that our new slogan?
Hockey Pass. Where the hell was that?
Where did that come from?
Jesus. I really went commercial.
Hockey Pass.
Let's see who. T2.